Hello, once again. Today we're coming to you live from the Alamo in San Antonio. We're here uh, in this historic shrine where the famous battle happened in 1836. In fact, right here next to where this jukebox now is where Davy Crockett laid down his life. But I'm having a breakfast quesadilla and we're going to look at some comic books. And a cat is scratching me. How about that? Man, these cats won't leave me alone while I'm eating. I talk about things. I talked about a lot of things yesterday in my like a 3-hour broadcast, and um, what I don't remember if I said this, but I had meant to say it. I was thinking about that. Because I don't collect characters. It's not like I collect Spider-Man, and I've had every issue. Thousands of issues that have come out. I've collected every one. I collect time periods, and Spider-Man's interesting in the '60s and part of the '70s, but beyond that, Spider-Man, I love the character, but I love that to me the character belongs in a particular time period. Spider-Man exists best in the '60s with coffee shops and go-go clubs and the look, the aesthetic of the '60s is what Spider-Man, to me, he belongs there. The same thing with most of the Marvel characters. But there's certain time periods that I find interesting, and I think that's what I surround myself with. A jukebox from like the early '60s, and I like things from the past, even the past before I was born. What's my point in saying that? I don't know. Ah, yes. My point is, I can't really tell you. I could tell you what, to me, what I like about the early '60s, what I like about the '50s, what I like about the '40s. But I can't really describe the world of 2026 well. And how will the world of 2026 be remembered? People have this shorthand way of remembering the past. We're doing a show called Happy Days. It's going to be set in the '50s. So we need a jukebox, we need a pinball machine, we need ponytails, we need, it's like things that you associate with, the shoes that the girls all wore with little white socks rolled up. And, well, yeah, Elvis Presley, all that, DuckTales. I've got a split on my knuckle, horrible cut. So it's hard to open up my drink. This is supposed to be healthy. It's pro-bacteria soda, and it's a Shirley Temple. Sometimes you go in a restaurant. My wife likes Shirley Temples, and the people will have no idea what a Shirley Temple is. Some high school waiter in this Mexican restaurant that is the son of the family that owns the restaurant. It's like, well, he had no idea what that was. And some lady, probably about 10 years older than me, from the next table was explaining to him what a Shirley Temple is, because I was actually going in there ordering food. My wife wasn't there, or she could have explained it, but Shirley Temple was on the list of things I needed to get. But anyway, they non-alcoholic drink. It started in the '30s, and Shirley Temple said she didn't like the taste of it. And then there's another version There's another drink that kids can drink called Roy Rogers. That started, a few decades later in the 50s, and a similar kind of drink. But this seems to be part of the world of 2026. These designer drinks, this is called Poppy. And there's another one called Popwell. These are the ones that my wife and I like. I don't think my wife tells me they're not that fattening. There's hardly any sugar. And they're supposed to be good for you. I don't know. I don't know about that. It's not orange juice. But it seems to be really trendy. And especially these tall cans, these energy drinks that are made for women with the pretty little cans. One is Alani something. They're real popular, or at least around this part of the country. This part of the country calls Coke, Dr. Pepper, they call it pop. It's soda pop. When I was in Texas, it seems like people called them soft drinks. And then you realize, well, that comes from a drinking culture, because they're soft drinks. They're not hard drinks. There's no liquor in them. So I guess that's where the term soft drink comes from. But 2026, to me, I think of these designer Alani, and everybody scrolling TikTok. So I'm told, make these shorts, man, for YouTube, and you'll get lots of new subscribers. And because a lot of people, they just look at the shorts, where YouTube, that's all they give them in their feed is shorts. And so that's how you'll get people to find your channel, because YouTube is promoting shorts right now. That's their thing, because they want to be more like TikTok with the tall, skinny videos. I like to watch YouTube on my television with the wide screen, but so I tried doing these shorts again. I tried doing them a few years ago, and now I've got the demographics have changed on my channel. According to there's more. It isn't just 55 to 65 and a few people older. And a few scattered people in their 40s. It's more, the age range is changing. But that doesn't. But I heard Nerd Roddick talking the other night, saying that he'd been pressured to do shorts, and he says he doesn't like them, and it doesn't bring people that are actually going to watch a long video, because Nerd Roddick does long videos, especially on Friday. Does that live stream that goes on for a good chunk of the day. So, but I think the people that come from those shorts rapidly unsubscribe. Yesterday, I lost 2 subscribers after doing a video. I thought the video I did yesterday was pretty good. I would have been entertained by it, but then I was like, man, I just lost 2 subscribers, man. I think must have been something I said, and my wife says, well, when you would just walk away from the camera for 10 minutes, that doesn't show a lot of respect for your viewers. And it's like, yeah, I guess I've done that before. I've actually walked away during a show and driven to the supermarket and came back. I did that back when I was in Texas, yeah, and I've just yesterday, or the day before, I was vacuuming the floor during the show. And I guess I could press the pause button, but that takes away from the authenticity of the show, man. but I can't think of something that is an iconic image that represents 2026. 1956, it would be Elvis. 1966, there are things that are happening. I mean, I guess 30, 40 years from now, and you're trying to put together a collage of what life would be like in 2026. I guess you'd have Trump, whether you like him or hate him, and that's probably the people that unsubscribed didn't like my point of view of these people that are rooting for the algae. Signs that say, "Go algae, we're with you all the way. Take over that pool. You'll show Trump who's boss." Just insanity. Trump had a rally last night in Washington, D.C., but it was like, I don't think it lasted more than 30 minutes. His rallies used to be an hour, 45 minutes. I don't know. There's a antique thrift store, junk shop, I don't know what you'd call it, about a block that way. And I go in there from time to time. The lady knows the stuff I'm looking for. She knows I'm looking for bookshelves. She knows that I like monster toys and old toys. She knows I like 50s stuff. I mean, she pretty much remembers what I'm into. And she says, "Well, I've got some Frankenstein stuff. I was thinking about you and this one girl that," oh man, I've got a rival that's also collecting monster stuff in this town. That's amazing. But anyway, I guess she bought a collection of baseball cards and stuff that were in a binder. And she said there were these little bitty monster cards, smaller than bubblegum cards. She thought they were from cigarette packs. I immediately thought, okay, she's talking about the Monster Laughs cards that are smaller. And I pulled one up on my phone, and she said, "Yeah, I think it looked like that. They were called Monster Laughs, and they have a little caption, a little joke underneath the monster picture, kind of like those magazines I was showing you yesterday. And they would have on the back it said Monster Laughs, and there'd be some little joke, a funny joke about monsters." And they're from 1963. So she said she'd go find them in the back, and maybe in a few days she'd have them. It's like, man, yeah, I got to get those before something. I don't know. Is there really someone else out there that's interested? She wants to show them to some girl too. Oh, shit. My assumption is that, and it always has been, is that no one else likes the stuff I like. And if there are people that like the stuff I like, it's very few people. You know, I've got a little less than 1,000 subscribers, and I'm really not sure that there's more than 1,000 people on the planet Earth, and whatever it is, 6-7 billion people on the planet that share the interest I have. But I don't know. And I don't know if these drinks are regional, if they're only around in certain parts of the country, or if these are everywhere. I was disturbed to realize that some of the fine restaurant establishments that I liked back in Texas were regional, and that they're just not here. Like the fine Mexican restaurant called Taco Bueno. Um, I don't know. Maybe that's just in Texas. It's like Taco Bell, but much better. I mean, not. One time I got a piece of wood this big in my food. And I kept going there. I did tell them about the wood, but it must have fallen. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, that was just one location, though. And Whataburger, that apparently, I guess that's just in Texas. And then, there are other regional chains like In and Out, which has expanded. In and Out had gotten to Texas before we left, and it's a Los Angeles place. It's very, my wife loves it. Then there's little secret codes if you tell them to certain things that aren't on the menu, they will do it for you. Like you say, I want my fries animal style or something. And then they it's a certain thing they know, but it's not on the menu. You just got to be in the know and know their jargon. They say, yes, sir. Oh, and they have Bible verses on their bags and on the bottom of their cups. And it's a super clean, friendly place that sort of has a sort of 50s, I don't want to use the word vibe, a 50s feel to it. Never liked that word vibe. And they always have two palm trees tied into an X, which I think comes from that movie. It's a mad, mad, mad world, right? Anyway, hold on a second. So I collect, as I say, time periods, and so Archie comics, something I dearly love. I like Archie comics up to about the time I was 10 years old. I don't think I would have that much interest in an Archie comic past the mid 70s, because I don't really want to see Archie and his gang in the disco era or in the 80s playing video games, which I have some of those Archie comics. And they, because, what do you think about when you think of the 80s, the MTV video games? But the time period that I like, that I wish I'd grown up in, is a few decades before, the 50s or the 60s. Those are far more interesting time periods. And I don't know. That's just the way I am. Okay, so are we ready to go? Let's take a look. But yesterday I was talking about my philosophy of humor and how much I love Harvey Kurtzman's early Mad comics for EC, and how so much of the humor that I love came from that. People that were influenced as kids by the EC Mad comics, later doing underground comics in the 60s, and then the National Lampoon and the early Saturday Night Live. And maybe I offended someone that thinks Saturday Night Live is still funny today in 2026. That maybe those are the people that unsubscribed. But there is something happening now that may, within a year, fundamentally, that was the word that Barack Obama liked to use. Fundamentally change. The world maybe our society may be pretty fundamentally changed by AI. It already is, to a large degree. But we're about to see what really happens, and whether we live through the Terminator or some benevolent time we're taken care of, and I don't know, but I see the seeds of a new the AI being used for a new humor revolution, because using AI, someone in their basement can create something that looks like a Hollywood movie and then subvert it and make fun of it and ridicule Hollywood. You know, in the 70s, there's Star Wars. Then someone makes Hardware Wars, and it's a little, probably shot on Super 8, maybe 16 millimeter parody of Star Wars, and it's done in a real low budget way, and it was funny because of that. Now, with AI, you could do it. Why would you make a parody of? I mean, Star Wars was great. The real Star Wars, this 1977, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Those were great movies. Anything else, ugh. But if you wanted to make fun of, say, The Mandalorian, you could make something that looks as good, if not better, than what they spent 200 million, 300 million, whatever they spent on that movie. You could do it in your basement, and might be a little bit wonky in your places, but you could create what they call AI slop, and it's and you could do just. It's like if you were a great cartoonist in the late 60s or mid 60s, you could, part of that underground comics movement, you could make great comic books but subvert the whole medium and use it for whatever insane message, or maybe you don't even have a message, you're just doing it for pure vomiting forth every kind of horrible thing that comes into your mind. It's just you could. I found that interesting, but I like this music we're listening to is music I created using Suno, using AI, and it's 50s and 60s music that never existed until I created it. But it's about like this song is about Godzilla, and but what you can do, I just made some songs about the, Crypto is Superboy's dog, not Supergirl's dog, and another one, the Supergirl's not a drunk, because I'm inspired. Just listen over these reviews I'm hearing about the Supergirl movie, and I just think, man, what are they doing? So I can make a song, Supergirl does not look like Chaka from Land of the Lost, that it would sound like a real song. And what I see people like, especially the person that I see that's doing great things with AI, is Damon Packard out of Los Angeles. You've got to look up Damon, Damon, and then Packard, Packard. Brilliant things, man. And he knows what he's doing. He could take the idea of what those late 70s science fiction TV shows like the Glenn Larson that looked disco-y, and you had Buck Rogers dancing with disco balls in the 25th century and stuff, and he could take that, combine it with rollerball and whatever else from the earlier 70s, and create something that looks wonderful that never existed before. I don't know. All right, let's look at some Silver Age comic books. I'll show you some Damon Packard stuff. In fact, yeah, I'll do it here in a second. Let's look at some comic books first, because people are already 25 minutes in and they haven't seen a comic book. And what kind of nonsense is that? All right, so we have some. So I want to get this box back upstairs. Okay, so we. I thought I had a facsimile of Batman #1. I guess I don't. This is a facsimile of Batman #5. These aren't comics that normal people can afford. Here's a facsimile of #9. It's okay. There's a Batman facsimile coming out next week. It probably is going to arrive in comic stores tomorrow. The comic stores, well, it depends on the store. Some stores get them in the mail, like the DC stuff arrives on Friday, but they're not supposed to sell them until the following Wednesday. Wednesday is the new comic book day, so the comic shops should get that book in tomorrow. Although I remember back in Texas, the comic store owner of the store I went to, he would drive to some place early in the morning on Wednesday morning and get the boxes physically. They didn't show up in the mail at his store. He went and physically got them. I don't know how that works, but they would early before the store opened on Wednesday morning, they would open up the boxes and put the books out and count them and check to see if anything's damaged. That's how I thought it was always done, but now I see that some stores get the books in the mail. Here's from Toys R Us. This is Batman 121, but this isn't a facsimile. It's super thin. It's not as thick as the original issue. It's a Toys R Us special replica edition. Oh, the original Mr. Freeze story. He was originally called Mr. Zero. This probably came out when Batman and Robin, the Batman movie that pretty much destroyed that franchise that started with Tim Burton in 1989. There was Batman, then 91, there was Batman Returns with Catwoman and Penguin, and then Tim Burton didn't direct the next one. It was called Batman Forever, when it had Val Kilmer. And then there was the one with George Clooney. That was called Batman and Robin. That was the one that destroyed the Batman franchise, destroyed Alicia Silverstone's career. I don't even know if she ever made a movie after that. And she was an actress that looked like she had a bright future. Clueless, I thought she was really charming in that. But she wasn't Batgirl. Batgirl has red hair. I mean, it's like, well, but why can't she have blonde hair? And it just doesn't matter. That's not the way it is. Like Mary Jane has red hair too, but they cast Zendaya. They said, well, she's not really Mary Jane. She's just MJ. Yeah, come on. It's what are you fooling? Hollywood does not like redheads. Redheads just don't. If a character's red-haired, it doesn't. They don't. Okay, so here we've got a book that I spent a little bit of money on. This is Batman fighting the Hammer of Thor. Notice how I'm covering. See how slick I am covering up the price tag. 10-cent Batman. This is the one I think shows up next week in your comic store as a facsimile. Got this about 4 years ago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And there might be an issue of Detective Comics being done as a facsimile too. I can't remember. And this is being done. It's just a curiosity. I mean, this was obviously years before Marvel did their version of Thor. Anyone really can do Thor. You can't stop. Like when the Thor movie came out, some straight to video. It used to be called straight to video. I guess now they're called streaming movies. They made a Thor movie where he looked different. I mean, you can't copyright Thor any more than you can't copyright Hercules. I mean, those Steve Reeves Hercules movies out of Italy were real big in around 1959, 1960, and then all these other Hercules movies came out, and they couldn't stop it because Hercules is it's not a character that you can copyright. He was someone that was he was a demigod. He was worshipped as a god. There was a city, Herculaneum, that was wiped out by a volcano that was named after him. You just can't. It's like you can't copyright Jesus Christ, although I wouldn't consider Jesus Christ and Hercules because I believe Jesus Christ was real. And there may have been a real Hercules guy, and he could have been super strong. He could have been a Nephilim. You know, they talked in the Bible about there were giants in those days. That could be what I think that is what they were talking about. Is what people perceived as gods, the Greek gods and gods of different cultures may have been what is referred to in Genesis as there were giants in those days, men of renown, because they were part angel. And the angels weren't supposed to be doing the hanky-panky with human women, but that's what created the superpowered beings, which is really what all these comic books are kind of based on, is that one verse from Genesis. Anyway. So, okay. Batman 129. See, there's Batwoman, and there's Batgirl. The original, no, that is Batwoman all the way around. Sorry, I can't see hardly. Yeah, it's Batwoman being spun around. There was also a Batgirl. Maybe we'll see her on one of these covers. But the Batgirl of the 50s had nothing to do with the one that Yvonne Craig played on TV. Here's Batman 142. Notice the big 10 cent. See here, this Batman 10 cent is very small, hard, but you'll see that when they put a big box around it and make it really big, or in the 70s it would say, still only 35 cents. You think, oh shoot, that means they're about to go up to 40 cents. And here, that means they're about to go up to 12 cents. So that would date this about 1961. I believe it was in late 1961 that comics went up to 12 cents. And yeah, that was, what was that? That was 142. And by 147, you see it has a big 12-cent box. And again, like I was saying yesterday, comic books had been 10 cents since the 30s, and and the store owners see a comic book, they would just up 10 cents, 10 cents. This is it's in a big box, not to tell the kids, hey, isn't that great? We went up 2 cents. It's to let the retailer know, hey, it's now 12 cents. Make sure you're charging the full price. Batman becomes Bat Baby. This really hurt the comic industry. Boys stopped buying comics to a large degree when this happened. You see this is another comic I was showing you yesterday. See under the DC logo, there's a little penciled in F. That was the condition. They would write the condition on these comics. And this one, so I can tell I bought these from Lone Star Comics way back when. I'd say I was probably buying these when I was about 15, maybe. Would that be right? Yeah, I was about 15 in 1980. That's probably when I was buying these. The Lone Star Comics opened in the summer of '77. And this is the False Face Society. And see under the DC there's an F, which again, no, it's a G. So this one's considered good condition. And to me, this condition is acceptable for a comic book from that time period. This condition is not acceptable. Not having a cover is problematic, as they like to say. But it's still something you can read. This is from November of '62. So, I mean, I can read the story and look at the ads. You can see how Adam West's mask was designed to look like the way he was drawn. When they were putting the Batman show together, they just picked up old Batman comics and flipped through a few of them, and they didn't pick up the latest issues of Batman because right before they started filming Batman, the comic book had changed, and they were trying to go in a more mature direction, and then the TV show came out based on the way the comic books had been, and then the comic books regressed until the Neil Adams era. Look at the Tiki Gods. That's cool. The ads are wonderful, man. 104 nights. See here, he's being punched and there's no big sound effect. There is a bang because he's fired his gun, but that would change. Once that TV show came on the air, sound effects became huge in the comics. Full page for ad for the Atom. Lots of Tootsie Roll ads in the old DC comics. See, Batwoman became a love interest for Batman. Yeah. Okay, so here's a coverless version of 157 from August of '63. Looks like I must have gotten several at one time, probably. These were all probably the original owner. Probably the covers were pulled off. These were books that didn't sell at the local drugstore, and they just pulled off the cover, sent that back to get their money back, and then they held on to the comics and gave them to their son, or sometimes unscrupulous retailers would strip the cover and sell them to kids for like half price. See, a 12-cent comic, let's say the retailer pays 6 cents, and then they make 6 cents profit. And then if it doesn't sell, they get their 6 cents back by sending back, for each comic, by sending a stack of the covers, or sometimes it's just the logo, this part. So, but then once they've stripped the comic, if they sell this, then not only are they getting their money back, but it's kind of stealing. They're supposed to destroy the comic. Here's Ace, the Super Bat Hound, September '63. I like this stuff. I like when there's a dog with a Batman mask and a cape. I like that. Yeah, something. I was thinking the Todd McFarlane action figure where he had Ace the Bat Hound. It's like, why does he make his mask black? But he did have a black mask in the comic. I was thinking, I guess, that he had a blue mask like Batman. Because Batman is gray and blue, but now if you had kids' crayons to draw Batman, they're going to pull out black, because ever since the Tim Burton movie, people now think of Batman as having a black cape and cowl. And Bob Kane was still alive in 1989 when the Batman movie came out, and he was saying, I always meant for it to be black, but I colored it blue because that's just the way the printing press worked then. And I don't buy that. I think he was just trying to kiss the ass of Hollywood. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, this is the book without the cover, but I also have a copy with the cover. Now, is this the first Ace the Bat Hound? I'm not sure. It almost looks, it says featuring Ace the Super. Oh, no, no, no. Ace the Bat Hound had been around, but now he's the Super Bat Hound because he has superpowers like Superman. Although Superman doesn't breathe fire. Oh, yeah. Great Scott. Bat Hound has acquired superpowers and he's using them against us. Okay. It's the first Super Bat Hound. Okay, here's what happened. Oh, that's one. Okay, so this is 158, and Batman has the notice the center. There's a black bat on his chest. That's the classic look, the way he looked, since the Golden Age. So I'm not sure what issue. That's 158. The next issue I have is 166, and this is the new look with the yellow oval around the bat. And notice that the character is drawn in a different style. The way he's drawn here is the way you see him in the opening cartoon credits for the Batman TV show, right? But here he's a little bit more realistic looking and less cartoonish. So the sales of the Batman comic weren't great, and they decided this new look for Batman and for Detective Comics, they were going to play up less of Batman going into outer space and fighting monsters and aliens and stuff that some people consider silly. I always loved, but they just said, let's make it a little more grounded and play up that he's this great detective. And so they started this about 1965. It was called the New Look, is what they called it. I believe that's what they called it. And then the Batman TV show came along, ignored the new look that had just started in the comics, and went back to the way Batman was in the past. And then the comics had to scramble and change back to the way Batman was so that they could stay with the juggernaut that was the TV show. The TV show was huge for a while, but it was a fad, and fads burn out. But, well, some do. I've heard people say that when they describe the 60s, it's like today what is 2026? Is it Taylor Swift? Who are the big stars in music? Who are the big movie stars? I can't tell you who they are. I don't know. Who are the big, what is it different about 22? How do people dress today? Every time period had distinctive clothing. So you can look at a front cover of an art sheet and say, okay, that's from the 50s. Look at the way they're dressed with the shoes. There's some capri pants. So this is probably about 1960 maybe. And here's a bunch of flower power stuff. Okay, this is later in the 60s. I couldn't tell you what's big today. See, I made this song "Surfing with Batman and Robin," and it sounds pretty much like what those budget records you'd get in 1966, trying to cash in on the Batman craze. I love that you can just create your own music, because that's my whole thing. All my life, I've kind of hated the time periods that I lived in. And so I've always tried to create my own little Fortress of Solitude, Pleasure Dome, whatever you want to call it, little fortress from the outside world where It's the 50s, 60s, all the time periods I love mixed together. To shut out the outside world, to shut out the Taylor Swift and the TikTok and everything bad that I don't like. But then I have to go outside and look at the chemtrails, although those seem to have stopped in the last few weeks. But so I watch the TV and the movies from the time periods I like. There's good stuff that comes out today, just not much. Oh, well, someone said the 60s, there were three main things that drove culture: the Beatles, Bond, and Batman. And if you look at the world as far as pop culture, those were the three main things. Beatles musically, the James Bond movies influenced a lot. From the TV Man from U.N.C.L.E. and I Spy and other spy movies, and Our Man Flint, and comics, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and all kinds of stuff, and all kinds of toys. As far as for kids, it was the Beatles, Bond, and Batman. And then Batman was huge as well. Anyway, so here is 176 of Batman. And then 181 is the first Poison Ivy. Now, this is not real. This is a facsimile from a few years ago. This is a very valuable comic now. Now, Poison Ivy was never on the 60s TV series, but she was supposed to be. And if you remember, there was a Catwoman episode where Leslie Gore is like her teenage sidekick. And I think she's called Pussycat or something. But she was actually hired. The original thought was for her to play Poison Ivy, which would have worked, the red hair and everything. And of course, they portray today in the comics, Poison Ivy is supposed to be LGBTQ, whatever. And if you know about Leslie Gore, she was also part of that community, although that was kept quiet back then. But later on that came out that was the case. So it would have been because traditionally Hollywood has had gay characters in movies going back to the 30s, well, before the 30s, but Hollywood's always had this, has always had gay characters played by gay actors. That was always something that they did. And people that watched the movie, a lot of people didn't know that was supposed to be a gay character, but people that were in the know knew. But average person going to the, person that lives on a farm, drives into town to see a movie, they just think, oh, that person is a little eccentric. Like Paul Lynde played a father in Bye Bye Birdie, but anyone could watch Paul Lynde. I didn't know what Paul Lynde was when I was a kid. I just thought he was this hilarious, funny guy on Hollywood Squares. And then I watched a rerun of those episodes in the 70s, and all the jokes are about being gay. It went right over my head. I just thought, look at the funny guy. He talks, he makes funny faces. He's Charles Nelson Riley, all these people. It's just like, they're just silly guys. I didn't know what any of that was. Youth. I just don't know anything, man. I was probably pretty naive. Here's issue 182, is 80-page giant. Okay, so at this point, 183, I think it's safe to assume that Batman was on television at this point. And just imagine being a kid in the 60s. The TV show's on, and you can get this 80-page giant with all these great stories, and these stories are going to be a lot like what you see on television because they're older stories. Oh, here's another copy of this, trashed all to hell, no back cover and not bagged and boarded, so we can look inside. So, thing about Batman and Robin is their eyes were never visible when they were in mask. The thing about the TV series, they never used the bat plane. And you're like, well, they just couldn't afford to do that. But they had an amazing Batmobile. The Batboat was meant to be in the first season, but it was used in the movie. I think it was in 1 or 2 episodes of the show, maybe. And there was a bat cycle, but they never. You said, well, they couldn't afford. I'll tell you what, the Japanese did superhero shows, and it's like they were never like, we just can't afford to do a bat play. I mean, they did. When Spider-Man was on TV in 1978 here, with Nicholas Hammond, the kid from Sound of Music, and it was, I thought, terrible. I was so disappointed as a kid, I guess I was 12, maybe 13, and Spider-Man, they're talking about it in the comics. It's like, wow, Spider-Man's going to be on, I don't know, ABC or CBS probably. And it was like, man, this doesn't even touch on the storylines from the comic book. Where's Mary Jane Watson? Where's this, that, the other? Harry Osborn is just, okay, well, I guess they have J. Jonah Jameson. He doesn't quite look right. Peter Parker seemed a little effeminate. I'm sorry, not that there's anything wrong with that, but Spider-Man, it just wasn't that. But at the same time as the series was on here in Japan, Toei Studios did a Spider-Man TV series. And since Spider-Man wasn't as well known as he was here, they did the costume exactly the way it was in this American comic book. But they gave him a science fiction origin. Didn't make it. He was a Japanese. He wasn't the Japanese guy. He wasn't Peter Parker. He had a different name. And then he had this great vehicle that would turn into a giant robot, and he'd fight these monsters. One episode, he fought a monster that looked just like the Thing, and he was based on the Marvel character The Thing, because I guess the Japanese people looked at an American comic book and said, yeah, that character looks good. Let's make a Thing. I swear Spider-Man fights the Thing in one of them. And he's flying around, and it's like, is it big budget? No, but it looks really cool. And they had the balls to, the Japanese just did whatever they wanted. That's if the Hulk was able to fight monsters in that Bill Bixby show, that would have been great. Not that show was bad. But it was like The Fugitive, where imagine The Fugitive, where he just turns into a green guy for a little bit at the end of every episode. Oh well. My point is, the Japanese aren't shy about making cool television for kids. It's like, oh, is it not going to look 100% real? Who cares? Kids have imaginations. Anyway, fantastic stuff, man. Incredible. Here's issue 187. where am I at here? Okay, here's 188. That's a villain that's been erased, no pun intended, from Batman continuity. The Eraser, who tried to rub out Batman. Did they ever bring him back? Here's a great cover. Burgess Meredith was a perfect Penguin. Frank Gorshin, perfect Riddler. I mean, the villains were very well cast in that show. I guess you know that Adam West and Burt Ward Adam West and Burt Ward were the finalists. They did a screen test, but there was another a guy and Robin that they were also doing screen tests, and then they had to decide, and they went with Adam West. But what is his name? Man, my mind's not working. The actor from the Carol Burnett show that played Wonder Woman's, that played Steve Trevor. I just tried a blank right now. I could have told, as soon as the show ends, oh yeah, the guy that, he has that square jaw superhero look, and he played Wonder Woman's boyfriend, Steve Trevor, in the Linda Carter TV show. This isn't right, man. It's rough getting old, man. Anyway, he was gonna play. They did a screen test with him, and with him. Hold on a second. I'll show you. Why can't I think of his name? It starts with L. His first name starts with L. I know that. But he did his screen test. He played it very straight, like Adam West did. Oh my gosh, Maureen McCormick doing "Time in a Bottle." Oh, it's a clip from the Brady Bunch hour. I get distracted by things that pop up on my YouTube feed. Hold on, let's go look at YouTube for a little bit. Brady Bunch got canceled. Then the Sid and Marty Krofft did this Brady Bunch hour. I can't let too much of this play, or I'll get some kind of copyright claim. That's a great song, Jim Croce. I'll tell you something, man. What was I going to say? Let's see. Man, my brain was not functioning. Oh, okay. Batman screen test is what we want. Okay, I remember. It's Lyle Wagner. I knew it started with an L. Anyway, this is the screen test for if Lyle Wagner and Peter Dale versus and then Adam West and Burt Ward were trying to decide between these two.
millionaire Bruce Wayne testing with Peter Day.
Okay, I don't want to play too much because get some kind of copyright problem from Warner.
Said when he slipped you that summons. What is it that no one wants to have, yet no one wants to lose? And you answered a lawsuit. The Riddler went on.
So they're doing the same script, but anyway, let's get to here. They're in the Batcave. It's cool. This is the other Robin.
222. Right you are. Holy caboose. Sure. Here's another one.
And look at the bat symbol. It's straight out of the movie serial. And then there's Adam West with that suit on too. You know, before they put the yellow. And they explained at some points in the comic book, it was like they did this explanation why Batman added that yellow oval, and it was supposed to be that he had some kind of bulletproof material under his chest, so he wanted the bad guys to aim there at like he has a target on his chest, because that's where he was safe, because Batman doesn't have bullets, don't bounce off of him like Superman. So that's what what they did explained at one point in the comic book, I think. Of course, now in the movies, he's just wearing bulletproof armor practically. Okay, while I'm here, let's look at. Okay, this is where you need to find Damon Packard, and it's a crime that he doesn't even have 7,000 subscribers, so you've got to subscribe to him. Let's see if he's added anything lately. Okay. Now, he's a friend of the channel. He's been on my show, so, I'm not going to get a copyright problem. But anyway, this is all done with AI, what you're seeing here. It's brilliant. And this is why, I say that if you're a brilliant person, there are things you can do. They're filming, this is supposed to be the 1970s, and they're filming like a space disco movie. There may be copyright problems with that song. I don't know if that's a... I'll turn the music down in case that he's using actual real music. I don't know. But it's neat to me, because I remember that era where everything looked like this. The era of Space 1999, of Buck Rogers and everything. And it's like, wow. This is done by someone probably in his apartment in Los Angeles. And to me, this looks more entertaining. I'm sure that what I'm seeing here is far more entertaining than that Supergirl movie that comes out tomorrow or tonight, with almost 100% certainty. I'd rather watch something put together by Damon Packard and then his Bigfoot documentary is fantastic. You got to watch that, about the guys that filmed Bigfoot back in the 60s. All done by AI. He does these videos where people are going up and down the Sunset Strip, all done with AI. And Quentin Tarantino went out and actually redressed the fronts of all these buildings, and the existing buildings in Los Angeles, to make them look like they did. And using AI, he was able to do this just without even going outside. And I think Although, some of the cars are going backwards because sometimes AI is confused. Trust me, within a year, it's gonna be indistinguishable. You're not gonna be able to tell what's AI. And I don't know if that's in a way that's good, but you're not gonna be able to trust any news already. They have all kinds of things on the. That's just amazing.
Tonight, in color on Los Angeles 9, and you'll be able to buy a James Dean T-shirt in the lobby if you drop by the station.
I gotta be careful with the music. I don't think he cares about the copywritten music because he's not monetizing this stuff. But this is when a real artist with a sense of humor, giant poster for Trog. It's an insane dream world that these robots that aren't truly alive are trying to recreate. House of Dark Shadows. This is what I feel like I'm doing with my music on Suno. Is recreating a time period from the past, but in a weird, dreamlike, insane underground comics kind of way. But anyway, I keep telling you guys about Damon Packard, and I don't know, someday you'll listen, man, when he takes over the world. Okay, let's go back to what I was doing. Worst commercial ever? What is this?
Okay, so this one,
Okay, what are you laughing at, guy?
forgotten that I had done this commercial at all. I didn't even remember doing it. Still don't remember doing it. But here it is.
It's Pulsar, the ultimate man of adventure. Imagine you power him up for dangerous missions on the Pulsar Life System Center. Batteries not included. You can power his heart and lungs.
Expert test, no damage.
Then dial the controls for the next test.
Brain check, all clear.
You can energize Pulsar faster and faster.
Can you take it? Let me go.
Pulsar Life System Center. Pulsar, the ultimate man of adventure, sold separately. You from Mattel.
All right, so like a kid's commercial from the 70s, right? That's fine. It's kind of a little weird. But then as I started thinking about it, it's not kind of a little weird. It's a lot weird. It's really, really weird. First of all, it's called Pulsar.
Okay, yeah, you have to explain why it's weird. This lady's saying AI is unwrapping complete Herculaneum scrolls, breaking archaeology news. Well, they are saying that the AI is translating a lot of ancient.
Phone, everyone. We've got crazy archaeology news that I just couldn't wait to share with you. We've got Mount Vesuvius, Herculaneum, and AI all in one headline, which is a lot to unpack. So let's dig into it. These are the Herculaneum papyri. Over 1,800 papyrus scrolls discovered in the 18th century in the Villa of the Papyri in Herculaneum, an ancient Roman town that was buried under ash by the same eruption.
I'll put this in my history because I want to watch this later.
This collection contains a large...
Man, the coolest stuff you can find on YouTube. I don't know why you're watching this channel. There's good stuff out there. Let's see. Well, the reason I went down the street to that little thrift store, it's an antique store, yesterday. Coincidentally, there's one of my shows where Batman's decorating a Christmas tree. I was wanting to get see if they had a Christmas tree. I was wanting actually to put up a Christmas tree. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Because the aluminum Christmas tree has been spectacularly, from the 50s, has been spectacularly unsuccessful with the kittens, because they destroy it, they knock it over, and I think a more substantial tree, and I don't want them ingesting all that aluminum. you know. So maybe when they're older, I can get the aluminum tree out. But I'm a little bit over that. I kind of want green trees for Christmas again. Okay. Oh my gosh. We were looking at Batman, is that correct?
Guess I'm gonna have to slurp another one. Here's Al. I never had a sense of humor. I never thought anything was very funny. After slurping up at my 7-Eleven store, I think everything is funny. I think you're funny.
All right. Pull out another stack of Batman comics. We saw the one with the eraser. We saw the penguin one. Okay. Here's Batman 192. Now, the Batman comics from this time period are very plentiful because this comic was... This is when, you know, the comics went up to 12 cents in late 1961. And the boys... The audience for comics dropped substantially. More girls kept buying comics. Boys, the sales dropped on comic books. And then when the Batman TV show started, the boys came back. So that would be about 4 years, then the slump, and then it came back. So there were tons of kids buying these Batman comics, so trust me, they're around. Here is 192 without a cover, 80-page giant. This has got a story, Ride, Bat Hombre, Ride. Come down with us, amigos, to the land of the gaucho and the wildest bandits in the world, and thrill through the exploits of Bat Hombre. Yeah, this is a cool... I don't think Todd McFarlane's ever made an action figure of this guy. He's like Zorro mixed with Batman, which is cool. And they've got the horse with a Batman mask, and Batman has a mustache. To me, that's amazing. And a red cape. Love it.
Finally, I put down my pencil and walked up to my 7-Eleven store to slurp. By the time I got back to my room, my problem was solved somehow. The answer was not only wrong.
The armored Batman, that's kind of what he is now in the movies.
I've always been very unattractive. Well, to put it straight, I was a dumpy, fat brunette. I was miserable. And then I decided to slurp up at my 7-Eleven store. Now I'm no longer a dumpy fat.
These were just...
I'm a dumpy fat.
Here's some... That's an actual Batman Sunday comic strip. Though this particular month, they had two spectacular covers. That issue of Batman and that issue of Detective have very innovative designs to those covers. Kind of like what happened with Marvel with Steranko. See, that looks very much like what we just saw in the screen test, where they're not wearing their masks. If they had more some of the episodes of Batman are straight out of the comic. They're adaptations of stories. I think Batman would have done better and maybe stayed on the air longer if they adapted stories from the old Batman comics. I think what caused the burnout with Batman, well, partly it was on against Lost in Space. Batman technically wasn't a half-hour show. It was an hour show, but it was divided between two nights, Tuesday and Wednesday night, I believe. Tuesday, there'd be part one, and they say, stay tuned tomorrow. They'd say, come back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. And that confused me watching it syndicated in the 70s as a kid. I'm thinking, well, now it's on every day after school. So and they're saying, tune in tomorrow. And I was thinking, how is that? This was a show on the network. Why aren't they saying come back next week? But what I didn't realize is that it was on twice a week, Tuesday, and you would come back the next night. So that's how they did and it was, so it was an hour. It was an hour-long script each week with a different villain. So, boy, I'm tired today. My mind's not working. How did I not think of Lyle Wagner? Let me get my train of thought. Hold on. I remember what I was going to say. They had the same basic story structure every week. Basically, they used the same script every week. They just plug in a different villain, a different celebrity guest star. Something would happen. It would cut to Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson in the mansion, and then Alfred would come in. Bruce would go answer the bat phone. They'd go to the bat poles. It would go to the opening credits. Then you'd see them come down the poles. They'd jump in the Batmobile. They'd go out. It would say Gotham City, 14 miles. Then they'd arrive in front of the police headquarters. They'd run up the steps, the same shot every episode of them running up the steps. And then they'd talk to the commissioner and he'd explain what's happening. And then they'd go meet up with the villain. There'd be a fight scene, and then there'd be some trap they'd be put in at the end. And then you'd come back. Everything was exactly the same. Now, when you follow that, like, what if an episode started in the middle of a fight and then had a flashback to how it started? You just alter the script. It was just like, okay, I know what's going to happen next, and then this is going to happen, and then I think that's maybe what caused the burnout. Yeah, I don't know. So, this is number 194 from August of 1967. No cover on it. Here's Batman 197. Okay. This is 201. This is where the cover is starting to look a little more serious now. And I think this is about the time the show got axed from ABC. And they started trying to be a little more serious. 203. Um, 205. I have two copies of this issue. Both of them aren't in the best condition, but it's a different looking cover. It's okay. Okay, where am I at here? 188. Okay. And you'll be able to see there's a time when Neil Adams shows up where you can definitely tell they're trying to reclaim the seriousness that they had started in 1965 with the new look, or was it called the new direction? I'm not sure. Here's 208. Here's a trashed copy of 208 Yeesh. This is when Aurora was trying to branch out and do other things besides just the model kits, and they tried to do games. They also did slot cars. Yeah, I think Leslie Gore would have been a great Poison Ivy. You see this show up sometimes on as a meme where Batman is spanking her. That shows up. I don't know. I see that from time to time. People will post that on the internet. There was one episode, an early episode of Batman, where you see a shadow, and then he if they had more of that kind of thing happening, and they just made it some scenes a little where Batman's shadow appears on the bad guys, just a few more dramatic moments like that. They could have that could have also helped the show. Here's like a 40s, possibly early 50s story. You see the sound effects, and you could just tell that when they were getting ready to do the Batman show, they just found some old comics in a thrift store that were probably 20 years old and just used those as their reference. And they weren't using the latest issue that was on the stands at the time. There's a Catwoman of the comics. But you see, the TV show did actually approximate the look of the comics, and people said it was just too silly. Well, it was adapting comic books that were silly. But that was what was wonderful about them. $2.10. That's how they were drawing Catwoman at that time, and that's what influenced the design of the Mego Catwoman that came out in the 70s. So this was a commentary on woman's lib. Batman 211. $2.18. This is one of the older ones the ones I got back from, when I say older, the ones I've had the longest, because I can tell, because I have it in this MyLite that when it first came out, I bought some MyLites and put my comics in them. And this is got that pencil in condition marking, little F. Issue 218, it's a giant size issue. Here's 212, and you can tell they're trying to get more serious looking here. This is out of order, isn't it? Laughs galore. You can tell the art's getting more serious. You're probably not going to see giant sound effects at this point. Well, I take that back. There is actually. What is it? So when you kick someone in the chin, did you know it makes a pa-chow sound? I wasn't aware of that. I don't think I've ever kicked anyone in the chin. In fact, I would say 100% certainty I've never done that. Let's see. So I don't know. Maybe it does make that sound effect. I was watching the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I didn't hear those sound effects, but maybe that's because they weren't wearing shoes. We're already in June of 1969. Yeah, Batman is off the air by that point. Batman and Sergeant Rock are appearing over in Brave and the Bold. Okay. Wow, it's a Batusi song I created. Okay. Neil Adams arrives. The redesign of the logo, which is fantastic, and this the Neil Adams is too much light reflection. Oh, come on, man. Okay, at this point, it's not the TV show anymore. Although I love the older comics, this was you could tell it's a whole new era. Neil Adams showed up at DC. Well, he was also at Marvel over there working on X-Men. And then Jim Steranko came along, I think a little bit before Neil Adams, over at Marvel. And between the two of them, there was kind of a revolution in the way comic books were looking. They started to maybe feel more sophisticated to a kid and more acceptable for a high school or college age person to maybe have them in their dorm room. Well, maybe not that much more, but here's 230. Batman with a Black Panther type group. I doubt they call them the Black Panthers. Here's a facsimile of 232. Here's 233. This one I had as a kid, and it disappeared, and then I got it again later. And this is not in the best condition, but I could never afford one now. It's the kind of, yeah, basically it's the return of Two-Face from the Golden Age. Two-Face was never a character used on the TV show. Although there was an issue of World's Finest that some people say, well, it had Two-Face, but it wasn't technically Two-Face, but it was kind of a test of, it's a long story, but people consider this to be the return of Two-Face to the Batman comic. So this got problems, looks like someone put tape on it at some point. Thought I saw a fold. That's not a fold. That's part of that's printed on there, but there is a crease. I don't know. It's in shitty condition, you can see, but it's still. But I'm positive I had this as a kid, and I probably got it because it looked like a horror cover, and I love monsters and horror. But that's not my childhood copy. Here's a facsimile of 237. There's some other facsimiles that they did in the last 3 or 4 years from this time period that I did not get. And I don't know. What do we have here? Here's kind of a facsimile. Would you call this a facsimile? Let me see here. It's got a little fold out. Yeah, it's got a cardboard cover. Would you call this a facsimile? Well, hold on. Here I've got I said yesterday, this may be the worst condition comic in my collection. And I think I was wrong. Because I think this may be, God. God almighty. How do you fix that, man? Jerry the Jitterbug. He could probably fix this. I've seen him put together an X-Men #1 that was in tiny little pieces. But anyway, this is would have been a valuable comic. I've got it this way in a stack of damaged comics called Wounded Wonders from Lone Star Comics. And I did not do this damage. But anyway, this is the original printing, so this will allow us to determine how successful this is. As I guess this is, they are. So yes, it is a facsimile. Let's see if there's an ad on the inside cover. Yeesh. Yeah. What kind of barbarian kid does that to their comic book, man? Yeah, okay, so it's a lot more. It is a facsimile of this one. Gee, Jehoshaphat. Now, the kid that owned this comic treated a little bit nicer. This being Batman issue number 5, 80-page giant issue number 5. So next to the 5, if you look very carefully, there's a little G, meaning this was in good condition, and it does have a slight roll here to the spine because it's a thick comic and the kid was bending it backwards to read it. But they treated their book pretty nicely compared to that last moron. And here's the Superman model kit, the Batman, and the Superboy and Crypto. Because Crypto, I will continue to emphasize, is Superboy's dog, not Supergirl's dog. Supergirl had a horse and a cat. Giant Batman Annual issue number 7. A lot of these, I was right 1989, right before that Batman movie came out in the summer of '89. I was buying up tons of these Batman annuals just because I got Batman fever, Batmania, whatever. Okay, then we move into the Silver Age Blackhawks. I don't have that many Golden Age, but no, if I did have Golden Age, they'd be in this box. This is a great cover with Lady Blackhawk. She was always a great character. Early, mid-1950s, because of the size of the Comics Code Authority symbol, they kept it pretty big to let parents know, hey, no, it's okay. You can buy this comic for your kids. So this started in 1955, and they kept it pretty large for a while, and then it kind of shrank down to a smaller size. I know where there's a honey hole of about this stack of about this many 1960s Blackhawks, but I don't have the money to get them. And they're really not valuable. They're really cool, but it's really easy to overspend because they're so cool. But they're not in demand, and that's just the way it is. It was just a crazy, it was a war comic, and then the war ended, and the comic book continued. For a while, Rudolph was something that came out every year from DC. This has always been a great cover, 205. back cover. Yeah, and for a while they made made the suits red. But he's called Blackhawk, not Red Hawk. This was a comic they just kept trying. It's admirable how long they kept trying, and then they tried bringing it back in the 70s. Blackhawk didn't start as a DC comic. It started from, what was it, Quality? It was a company called Quality, and DC bought that. Was it Fawcett? I think Blackhawk was a Will Eisner. I thought it was done from Quality. Anyway, DC bought the company, so they got Blackhawk, they got GI Combat, and they acquired Plastic Man. They never did much with Plastic Man. And then I know they got the characters from Fawcett. They got, at least they got Captain Marvel. And then they brought him back in the early 70s in a comic called Shazam. With one mighty word, Shazam, the original Captain Marvel. Because at that point, Marvel had started their own Captain Marvel, thinking it was public domain. And then now they just call that character Shazam, which I think is stupid. But they'd acquired this character, Blackhawk, which was one of the big sellers of World War II in comics. And they just kept hoping if we just keep putting it out, eventually maybe the kids will start liking it again. Which is what Stan Lee did with X-Men. He just never stopped publishing it. Even though the sales were miserable, he kept going with it. And then it's like it got to the point where we're going to cancel it. No, just keep it going. Just start printing reprints. And they went with reprints for a good maybe 4 or 5 years in the early 70s. And then they revamped the X-Men, and then it became hugely popular and exploded. So, Stan Lee kept the X-Men going from the time that Kennedy was in office, all through the LBJ administration and the Nixon administration, and into the Gerald Ford administration, and then right before Carter took over, I guess Ford was, mid-75, that's when the X-Men, the new X-Men caught on. Okay, this one's in 206, a little bit unfortunate. How the hell does that happen as a kid? You've got to try to do that. Doesn't happen accidentally. Still has some nice gloss to it. You know, sometimes I find damage to a comic charming, and I think it's part of its history. I could tell this is well loved, but when a big chunk's just torn off of it intentionally, then you just like, oh man, that stupid kid. But when there's an ad for make yourself astronaut tough, and it's got someone's name written in it and his address, and then he never cuts it out and mails it, that's charming. I don't really even consider that damage to the comic. But I don't know, maybe I could send this in to CGC and see what score I'd get. It may not get a 9.8, but maybe a 9.2. Here's 215. I hear people say they don't like floating heads. I don't understand that. It's like people saying they don't like pumpkin pie. But then they probably think that about me when I say I don't really like sports. They say, what's wrong with that guy? That's how I feel when you hear me say I don't like sports. That's probably how I feel when you say I don't like floating heads. Mucho new, very nuevo. Meet my cousin Cisco from South America. Look what happens when he tries to join the Blackhawks. Pero, Andre, por favor, a decir verdad. Mais oui, Cisco says, don't jump to the conclusions. Did you see how he tries to solve this mess? So you got two different stereotypes there on the side with floating heads. Pero Andre, that means but Andre. Por favor, that means please. But Andre, please. Decir verdad. Decir, does that mean say? Verdad, I know, means truth. I think it means, but Andre, please, let me tell you the truth. And then he's whispering to him. Anyway, it says, Blackhawk, we're too late to save Andre. The Dragon Man's got him, thanks to Cisco. Look at the Dragon Man. I didn't even notice him there. It's like the creature from the Black Lagoon's cousin. Damn, man. Incredible stuff. But wait, there's more Blackhawk. Begin it here, the new Blackhawk era. So they keep trying to say, hey, wait, it's cool. And they put almost the whole Justice League on the cover, much bigger than the Blackhawks, to get you to buy this comic. Look, there's Batman, buy this book. They were really desperate to make this sell. This must have been the same owner that just tears off chunks for no reason. There was a Blackhawk cereal, not cereal that you eat, but a movie cereal with Kirk Allen playing the main guy. I call him Blackhawk, but I guess the whole group of guys is called Black. I'm not sure. This is 239. That's a cover that looks like it's straight out of the Golden Age. That's a great cover. Very Will Eisner-like, with all the guys that are beaten up, hanging off the swastika. 241. This is also a very innovative cover. Okay. Okay, let's see. Where am I at here? Now, Blackhawk, in the late 70s, when you'd go into a comic book store, like I went into Lone Star Comics, and I didn't have much money, and I wanted to get an old 1960s comic, Silver Age. I don't even know if you called them. Did people? I don't remember people calling them Silver Age at that time. They might have been. The first time the term Silver Age was used was in a letter column to Justice League of America about 1965. And they said, if you keep bringing back all these heroes from the Golden Age, we might have to call this the Silver Age. And people think, or at least I read somewhere online, that may be the first time someone it was a reader, used the term Silver Age for a comic, that current comic book era. But I don't remember when Silver Age they started using. I was just calling them 1960s comics, I think, back then. But I knew that if I didn't have much money, I could buy Daredevil, I could buy Blackhawk, I could buy Tomahawk. There were Metamorpho. There were certain DC titles that were cool, Secret Six, that weren't in demand, and they would always be there. I knew I wasn't going to be able to afford Amazing Spider-Man, but I could afford the 60s Fantastic Fours, except for the super important issues, which I'm not going to use the term key issue, because that is a term that comes from this new generation of comic book collectors that only collect key issues. I didn't want to use their terminology, and I don't like their grading system of 9.8, 9.2, and so much importance put on all that. I just here's another innovative cover. That's a very Will Eisner thing, to take the logo and play around with it. Okay, so that looks like the end of that. Blackhawk. Then Blackhawk came back in the 70s, and I've got some of those, but they're in different boxes. Here's Brave and the Bold 28 with the first appearance of the Justice League of America. It's a facsimile. I should have said that. It's not real. They were doing this, I think it was last summer or sometime recently, when Marvel was doing the reprinting of the first 12 issues of the Fantastic Four. What the hell was that? Here's 29 of Brave and the Bold. They were starting to reprint the early appearances of the Justice League of America. Did the cat get up? Where did that cat go? I'm thinking the cat's behind the TV. That's why I'm looking over there. I heard a sound. Ambrose the cat's turning into Jackie Chan, man. 29, 30. This was at least they did the first 3 issues. Okay, that was 30, and then they did a facsimile of 54 with the first appearance of the Teen Titans, although they didn't call them that yet. They were just the sidekicks teamed up from 3 different heroes. So none of those are real. This is my first actual issue of Brave and the Bold, Metal Men and the Atom. It's number 55. Brave and the Bold started as a comic with knights of old, and that kind of stuff, and then it became a superhero title. But by the time when the TV show came along of Batman, they had Batman in Detective Comics, and he was also in World's Finest, right? And Batman was selling so well, they basically gave Brave and the Bold to Batman, and he was teamed up with a different hero in every issue. And so that gave them more Batman comics on the stands. Whoa, to make more, because he was the cash cow for DC there for a while. Until the TV show was canceled, and they had to try to desperately save Batman, and they did a good job with that. Okay, so here's the first Metamorpho, a character I really love, and he was brought into that Superman movie last year. I really liked the Superman movie, although I look back on it now and I like one. It's like, I don't know, man. How would I describe it? It's like you have some girlfriend and you really think you're in love with her, right? And she's really neat, and you have all these great times together, and then you kind of break up with her, and then you think, man, those were great times, but I think that she was really cheating on me the whole time, and the time she said that, I wonder if she really meant this or that, and I have to keep rethinking that Superman movie from last summer that I really liked, and really, I told you I loved it, but after that movie, then there's that Peacemaker season 2 with the horrible perversity that was in that, and then they bring in the characters Hawk Girl and Green Lantern and Lex Luthor from that movie that had just come out a few months before, and have them say all these perverse things, just very, very lewd stuff. And then now I see what he's doing with Supergirl, and apparently they're really doubling down on the fact that Superman was sent by his parents to take over Earth and to spread his seed, and that's all really heavily emphasized in this new Supergirl movie, and that she's a drunk. And it's like, what are you doing with it? You didn't create this. Otto Bender, a brilliant guy, created the Bottle City of Kandor. He created Crypto and Supergirl and Bizarro and all this great stuff from that Mort Wessinger era of DC. And then these people come along, I'm embarrassed by that Silver Age stuff. Let's wipe it all out with the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we'll start over and just have it without the silly stuff. Who wants We never want Crypto or Streaky the Super Kid. I want that. I'm gonna take over Casper and get rid of Spooky, Nightmare, and all of the ghostly trio and Wendy. We're just gonna make Casper into this dark, malevolent poltergeist and make it serious, like the way it was intended to be back when it was created. This is bullshit. There's Brave, Brave the Bold. I just laughing at this music. It sounds like the Doors. They're singing horrible shit. Let's see, 57. Okay, here's a real copy of 60, which is, I guess, the second appearance of the Teen Titans. And that's a real one. And then, summer before last, I think they did this facsimile. And so you can see, how well you think they did. They have they added a black border here. I was watching a bunch of clips of Paul McCartney being interviewed back in the 60s, and he was like, oh yes, yeah, he's just being very pleasant with the person interviewing. Whenever he was annoyed with someone that was interviewing him, he'd kind of like do this. Yes, we really enjoyed being on Shindig. Yes, yeah. It's just he did that all the time. It wasn't just he was just flipping off the reporter to their face on camera. But I wasn't meaning to do that when I was pointing out the. You guys don't like my music, man. You won't tune in to the show. I'm gonna keep doing it though. It makes me laugh. It really makes me happy. Okay, so yeah, they added a black border around. I don't know why they did that. What can I say? Here's 61, Brave and the Bold. These were books you could pick up cheap also back in the early days of Lone Star Comics. I don't know if that's valuable now, but it's basically they're bringing back the Justice Society from the 40s. Here's 62. This is a great cover. Here's another copy of the same one. Oh man. Where am I at? Okay. What time is it? Oh. What time is it? It's 9:47. Right when I said 9:47, she was saying 47 on the song. It was a fake Leslie Gore song. This is interesting. It's number 64 from Gotham City Comics. First of all, this was a copy of Tex Watson. Just kidding. But it's signed Tex, not Tex Watson of the Manson family. It's 64. So why does he write number 15? And I thought about that and came to the conclusion pretty quickly that the kid had a library system for his comics. And this was just his 15th comic. So if a friend wanted to read one of his comics, it's like, yeah, all right, you can have that's number 15. Make sure you bring back number 15. And then he'd file it back between 14 and 16. But he didn't have a complete run of Brave and the Bold, so he's not going by number 64. He's going, no, it's not my 15th comic in my collection of probably, 80 comics or something. Yeah, man. There's also a star up here, and then that looks like a check mark. I didn't notice that before. That's a pretty good drawing of Batman. Fantastic. 65. Flash and the Doom Patrol. What was that? 65. 74. Oof. Another issue of 74, not in as good a shape. '78, Batman, Wonder Woman, guest starring Batgirl. So we're probably up to about 1967 at this point. Because, let's see if I'm correct. There's another copy without a bag and board. No, actually, June, July of '68. Angel and the Ape. I only have, I think, 1 or 2 issues of Angel and the Ape. What's really cool from DC were the Bob Hope and Jerry Lewis comics, because Jerry Lewis was still popular with kids. He was making movies, and the Jerry Lewis comics, it seems like he's mostly at some summer camp that's run by a Nazi. Like that's wearing the Nazi uniform. That's me. But the Bob Hope comic, they had to try harder because Bob Hope was an older guy than Jerry Lewis. Bob Hope was the big guy in the 1940s, 20 years before, that was, touring USO shows for the troops and everything. And so they had to make his comic hip, so they gave him a character called Super Hip, who was like a British musician. And then they knew that monsters were really big, so they put Frankenstein, a vampire type, a Wolfman, and a Dracula. They put all these monsters into the Bob Hope comic as regular characters, and they'd be on the cover of every issue. You'd have all the monsters and this character called Super Hip. So you had the mod stuff and the monster stuff to sell that, and it was such a fun comic. And I have a lot of them, but I don't have all of them. I think if they put out a Bob Hope omnibus and the Jerry Lewis omnibus, I might actually have to buy that. I try to avoid those omnibuses, whatever you call it, because they're just so cumbersome. It's like you've got this giant book spread on your lap, and it weighs 40 pounds. I've never seen this model kit, the garbage truck. Imagine going down to your local beach in a garbage truck with your surfboards. Crazy new custom show rod, mod musicians, skin diving, surfing gear. It's a mod copy of the familiar alley prowling Packer type garbage hauler, all shining and sparkling and crazily equipped. It's the biggest garbage truck of all time. Terrific beach buggy too, and a Showtime stage complete with mod singer and 2 guitarists. Didn't Trump have a garbage truck he was driving around in during the last election campaign? That was really spectacular. He was working at a McDonald's to show up Kamala Harris, who claimed that she worked at a McDonald's, and then it turned out it was a picture of someone else, and they glued her, they AI pasted her face onto someone else's body, and she never really worked there. But he was driving around. I could have sworn he was driving around a garbage truck. Someone should they'll never do it, but someone should make a model kit of his vehicle. If I ran the world, Aurora packs a screwdriver with these big, beautiful hobby kits because that's all you need to put them together. So they're marketing these planes that you could screw together. I never heard of that. I don't remember this ad. No kidding, no cement. Just drop the special Phillips screws into the holes and twist. You've got, maybe some parents were saying, no, I'm not going to let you have that model kit because I don't want you sniffing that glue. Maybe that's because there were people that started doing that. And then after this, Aurora tried to do the snap together model kits that any kid could put together. Only problem is the pieces would eventually fall apart. And I have so many model kits from that era that I've lost to time, because the piece, one arm would fall off the Cro-Magnon man or the Neanderthal man, and then the other arm, and then his body would fall apart, and then before long he doesn't exist anymore, or only his stand exists. So now I know when those reproductions come out, like the Monster Scenes kits with Dr. Deadly and his torture dungeon, I'm going to make sure that I glue them together. Look, Wonder Woman spelling I love Batman. That's cool, man. With a flare, I guess. And then Batgirl's up there looking at her do that. Fantastic. Okay, here's where, with Brave and the Bold, the seriousness look comes along. This has got to be Neil Adams. Issue 80. Batman and the Creeper. And this villain named Hellgrammet. How is it Hellgrammet has never come back? I don't know, maybe he has, but that seems like a character that Todd McFarlane would love to make an action figure of, and that in today's modern world, people would love a character that looks like that. But 81, Batman and the Flash. But Bork can hurt you. Bork, wasn't he on the Supreme Court? Or he tried to get on the Supreme Court. They didn't let him. Isn't that what happened? I don't remember. 83, Batman and the Teen Titans. Yeah, these were all about 2 summers ago, maybe 3 years ago. I got a whole bunch of Brave and the Bolds from Kevin Johnson at Gotham City Comics in Mesa, Arizona. There's that pose that actually comes from is it an old statue? Or I think there's a statue like this. And then these poses are based on, because you see they have on that Crisis on Infinite Earths comic where Superman's holding Supergirl because they thought they were going to kill off Supergirl because her movie, that one with Helen Slater from the mid 80s, it didn't do well, so DC said, F that character, let's just kill her off. And then they had to bring her back because people did like Supergirl. That movie wasn't very good, you know. Anyway, so there's this pose, there's that one with Superman and Supergirl, and then there's the one with Cyclops holding Jean Grey, and then there's been all these other people that have imitated the Crisis on Infinite Earths cover, not realizing it really goes back to something from the Renaissance. I don't remember what. It's probably, I don't know. It's probably some sculpture by Michelangelo or so. Who knows what the hell. Not the turtle. Okay. All right, here's some more. 88. This is that Neil Adams looking Batman where he's real angry. Doesn't smile much. Here's 90. With the grandmother of all spine rolls. '91. Oh, here's a charming cover. Welcome to Fun City. This guy's just shot Black Canary and Batman. 92. Okay, we're moving into the horror era where the covers on DC Comics all kind of look like the covers for House of Mystery they add an element of horror in because horror was selling really big. Because they loosened up the comics code to allow horror elements into. I mean, before you could only have like Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula. They were in the Bob Hope comic, but that's because they were silly looking, cartoonish. You were allowed to have classic monsters based on, literary sources during that time period of the comics code from 55 to 70. But then the Comics Code relaxed their standards and then allowed you to have zombies and things. And that's when Marvel started reprinting all this stuff from the pre-code horror days. And DC started House of Mystery, House of Secrets, Unexpected, Witching Hour, Secrets of Sinister House. I mean, just on and on. And then Marvel was doing Crypt of Shadows, Vault of Evil, and some were reprints and some were new stories, and where monsters dwell. It didn't end. And then, just every issue just has kind of a horror-looking cover from this time period. Number 97. You can see just every issue. It looks like a horror comic, but it's a superhero comic. And that lasted for at least a good year and a half, 2 years, 3 years. The horror looking stuff, which was great because that's what I was into. Here's this one's. I actually have two of this. This one's had a little bit of improvement to the Batman logo. Okay. All right, this is about the end because we looked at the Captain America. Captain America comes next. We looked at those yesterday. Go back to yesterday's episode. This is 100. Okay, 101. They're still doing the horror covers. See. And then we moved to then it goes into the Bronze Age, and Bronze Age is in separate boxes. Brother Power the Geek, we looked at these yesterday, and Captain Action, number 1. I think there were 2 or 3 issues. I think there's Wally Wood art in that, but I don't want to open it right now.
Under the house. It is in the basement of your home. You can hear it, and soon you will see it. Terror from under the house. Warning. Clue. Free with every ticket. You must accept free screaming teeth of terror as a warning that terror from under the house might just scare you to death. Hemisphere Pictures presents Terror.
The Captain Action, you could put different costumes, uniforms on him, and put a new shell around his head to change him into Superman or Batman or Sergeant Fury or Flash Gordon. There were a whole bunch of superheroes from different comic companies, and he and his partner would turn into those characters. And that was like a little kid like me that would play with the Mego figures in the 70s that were all made to be individual superheroes. His older brother, in theory, would have played with the Captain Action in the mid 60s if there was a kind of an age gap between the older brother but my older brothers didn't ever have Captain Action. They had my brother Mike had G.I. Joe. Steve told me, my oldest brother, that he didn't like the idea of G.I. Joe. He thought it was like a doll for girls. I guess because you dress it up, you change, you take off the clothes and you put on a new unit. He didn't like that, but he did have tons of little Green Army men. because that was more masculine. You didn't take the clothes off the Green Army men and put on new clothes and put on their shoes. You know, that's too much like a girl toy where you're dressing a baby or a child, or, you know, your Barbie and your Ken. So that was his philosophy. He had tons of those. There was a company called Auburn that sold those toys at a, and for years those were my childhood toys. But then later he asked for them back because he had kids at that point. He wanted to play with those toys of his children, so I gave them back to him. But then I got nostalgic for all those, and I went, and from eBay I found an Auburn, and I had to learn what the name of the company was that he had bought all these toys for, you know, at the 5 and dime, and it was called Auburn. And I'll show you. I've got this half track just to remember all the good times that I'd had with my older brother playing with those Green Army men. So what we do is we get one of those plastic guns that shot the darts with the rubber tips, and we'd shoot that into the enemy soldiers. And then the guys that were knocked down, or the tanks that were knocked over, those were casualties. And dust this off, but this is what I'm talking about. I'm watching myself. Yeah, I know I'm a narcissist. That was pointed out to me by an old friend who also said I looked like I was going to die any day, but I still survive. Although I'm starting to have some chest pains. I'm probably not. If I ever go a week or so without doing a show, just assume that I'm no longer with us. Okay, yeah, very dusty, but this is a half track. I don't know if you remember these. Yeah. That's it. Well, we're supposed to have some rain today. How about that? Okay, so that whole Batman box has been gone through. Let's see what the weather's doing, man. Oh, man, someone knocked their bed over. Well, sunny days sweeping the clouds away. On my way to look at the next comic box. I guess. 2 hours, 13 minutes, man. Okay, we'll take that Batman box back up. Oh, we were going to look at Eerie Publications. Did we finish with this Monster Times box? Anything in here you want to see? Let's see if I missed anything. This is an adaptation of the Elvira movie, and it's put out by Marvel. So I really should put this with my Marvel magazines. She also took over the House of Mystery for a while. Art's pretty good in this. I forgot I owned this. Or I forgot this book existed, really. That was a good movie when it came out. Inks by Ernie Colon. Inks by Romeo Tangal. Interesting. And then an issue of Femme Fatales with her, this was a magazine that was around for a while, with the Scream Queens. And then this magazine, when did this come out? I saw this on the newsstand and I thought, well, I kind of have to buy that. It's got a weird gritty feel to the cover. It's like it's made out of, it's the cover literally, I said literally, feels like sandpaper. It really does. But it's just a magazine that goes through the history of Frankenstein. you know, they put out, they don't put, when did this thing come out? When would the 200th anniversary of Frankenstein have been? Come on, man. "200 years since Mary Shelley wrote the book." How do you not put the year on? Oh, here we go. It's in the back. "2018, right before the pandemic." And then at the same time, what used to be Life magazine did one too. You know, it's just like a slick monster magazine. There's some boxing magazines. I don't think anyone cares about boxing anymore. And people are into this Ultimate Fighting Championship. Look at this guy. He looks more like a wrestler. Is this wrestling too? Yeah. Boxing Illustrated and Wrestling News. So it combines the two sports. Says he has the physique she can't resist. Oh, look at this. An article on Freddie Blassie. Fred Blassie, King of Men. I'm sure you've heard his song Pencil Neck Geek. That was played, I think, on every single episode of Dr. Demino. Is he still around, Dr. Demino? I think I was at somewhere, half-price book, somewhere where they had a bunch of these Boxing Illustrated magazines for like $1 each, and here's a wrestler from Algona, Iowa, Bob Geigel. Look at this guy. Yeah, the back part of the magazine, it's like, this is the wrestling section. So they divide the back of the magazines, the wrestling part, and the front of the magazine is the boxing part. Interesting. Very interesting. Here's a magazine competitor for Hugh Hefner, Rogue for Men. Let's see what we can find in here. some nice artwork. This is in World War II. I guess you remember from reading history books that an airplane hit the Empire State Building. That was, the time before the World Trade Center. When that happened, everyone said, well, if you were watching the news coverage on that day, September 11th, they said, well, back in the 1940s, an Army plane hit the Empire State Building. But it didn't, obviously, collapse the Empire State Building. That would make a good t-shirt design, I think. This magazine is not it's not as offensive as the competitors. There's some issues of Fangoria that are not in the Fangoria box. This is Fangoria 18 and Fangoria 21. I need to get them back into their proper boxes. Okay, well, we looked at those issues. We didn't look at all the Monster Times, but we'll do that some other time. I gotta get these boxes back upstairs. Okay, we were looking at Fantastic Four. We didn't finish that, but it's alright. Oh, this is a box that I also brought down that we had to look at. Let's see what's in here. Oh, come on. Here's first appearance ever of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm just pulling random things out. Okay. Here's some early Barry Smith art. If you look closely enough, you can see the look of those early issues of Conan the Barbarian. He's trying to be Jack Kirby real hard. And then doing the ink is Herb Trimpe, Smith Trimpe. I know he's now Barry Wollstonecraft. Barry Windsor Smith. Barry Windsor Wollstonecraft. Laputa, or he's Sir Barry Windsor Smith. But back in the 70s, it was just Barry Smith. Oh, that's cool, Barry Smith art. At some point, I'm Barry Windsor Smith. Don't call him. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. He's a great guy. Marvel superheroes. This whole box is Marvel are these square-bound reprint books that are fantastic and great bargains. There's hardly any store that's going to charge you more than $5 for one of these, and yet they're Silver Age. There's great ads, and they reprint the earliest Marvel comics, and the Marvel. I highly recommend these. They're just fantastic. Marvel Collector's Items, which later changed its name. It was Marvel Collector's Item Classics, and then I think with issue 24 they become Marvel's Greatest Comics and reprint the Fantastic Four all through the rest of the 60s and then all through the 70s. And then there was a separate comic that did the same thing. Well, it was called Fantasy Masterpieces, and they reprinted Golden Age stuff. But then at one of the issues, they changed the name to Marvel Superheroes, and this is the first appearance of the Marvel Captain Marvel. The Marvel Captain Marvel. And then on the back, it's got reprints of Golden Age stories. And I think they changed the title because there was, a syndicated cartoon on TV called Marvel Superheroes. And you see there's a date stamp, February 8th, 1968. So, there's one without the date stamp. But they would have, some of these there would have new stories, like this is a great cover, story about Medusa, member of the Inhumans. And then they introduced this character, Phantom Eagle, who I thought he was kind of he's a World War I pilot. There's a note on the back of the board because I won this. See, I had this copy, but if you look at the top, it looks like maybe it had gone through. It has smoke damage. Do you see that black at the top? So I saw one. They used to have these claim sales. Nobody does them anymore. I don't think so. There used to be a guy that did them on Saturdays called Cheapskate Comics. I don't wonder if he still does it. And then there was a guy named Psychotronic Squirt Gun that was doing it several times a week. And I think he stopped and is just doing his, he creates this music about characters and some like soap opera. He has this soap opera with running characters, and he has this music that he does about them. But I don't know. He was doing claim sales, so I saw this and I thought I'd upgrade it. I guess maybe Marvel saw that Enemy Ace was selling for DC, so they tried to do a World War I pilot guy. Greetings, Kenneth. Really big thanks for participating in the claim sale. I hope you enjoyed these Gold Key comics. There's even a Harvey one thrown in here. They're good taste indeed. I have a tiny stack of those pocket-sized comics too, so I hope you enjoy Heathcliff. It was nice corresponding with Cleo as well, because she knew how to pay. So anyway, that was about a year ago. And then people cared about this for a little bit because they heard the Black Knight's going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he was in for about maybe I think he was in for about 3 seconds at the ending credit sequence of The Eternals, one of the worst movies in the history of Hollywood. But anyway, Black Knight. But by issue 22, it was all reprints of X-Men and Daredevil. Still a great comic because you're able to read these stories and it still feels like you're reading an original because it still feels like a Silver Age comic because it is a Silver Age comic. Here's 25. Someone drew a mustache on the Submariner. 26. I don't know if Oh, after that finishes, the last one I've got, well, Marvel Superheroes kept going all through the 70s, reprinting Hulk comics. Tales to Astonish, and then the Hulk's regular title. There's the second issue of Metal Men. I don't have the first issue, but the Metal Men is a fantastic comic. That's another one that was easy to buy because it wasn't in demand with the average people. I always thought this looked cool, the Gilbert Autorama. Just a great, here's a song, a country song about Jessica Six from Logan's Run. And today is the 25th, so 2 days ago was the anniversary of the 50th anniversary of Logan's Run coming out, which I tried to make a big deal out of on the show, but there's issue 7. Number 8, I've got a lot of them, but I don't have all of them. It probably wouldn't be hard to get a complete set of these, but I've also got the DC Masterworks, or whatever you call, Marvel Masterworks, DC Archives hardcover, but it's never the same as reading a real comic. You don't have the ads, it just doesn't have there's something about holding the original comic. It's like Lux Interior of the band The Cramps was talking about. You can get these old records on CD, but there's something about listening to the original 45 RPM record, holding it in your hand, playing it. It sounds so much better, is what he was saying. The old 50s and 60s music he was talking about. Here's number 13. That's an interesting little date stamp that looks a little different than you normally see it. February 26th is when that came out on the stand. Here's another copy of that's in terrific, terrible condition. Terrifically terrible is what I was trying to say. 17. I've written some songs about the Metal Men. I need to write some more. Another copy. See, $3.50. People don't charge much for these books. Their loss, your gain. People don't care about them, so keep it a secret. Don't be spreading the word. Keep it our little secret, how good these books are. 22, we're listening to a show from 2 days ago. See, I keep buying the same books over and over again accidentally. 23. 24. Another 24. No 25, here's 26. Another 26. Another 26. Another, it looks like I have 4 or 5 issue 26. And I think, because the Menace of the Metal mods, it might have, I don't know, maybe it's the word mod that got me excited every time I saw it. 28. Sometimes you just forget which ones you have. Just like I couldn't think of Lyle Wagner's name earlier. 28. Ooh, that's a cool coloring effect. That really looks good. The coloring is great. The way you can see the red reflecting in her tin. She's made out of tin, right? Her name is Tina. That's beautiful. 32. And then I guess the rest are in the next box. Here's a mint condition 39. You think they put enough tape on there and it still didn't work? I guess it held this together, but the cover sure didn't stay on. Here's the song about the summer of '76. The first television I ever had. I still have it upstairs. It's my parents paid $100 for it, a black and white TV, and it was in my bedroom from '76 on. It still works. And it's in red, white, and blue plastic, and the date on the back is July 7, 1976. I'd show that to you now, but I'd wake my wife up. She's keeping strange hours. Like a vampire. She does a job from home. She wakes up for that, and she's been in a lot of pain lately. So if you'd say a prayer for her, and I've been having a little, I don't know if it's strain right here or if I'm feeling heart pains. I don't know, man. I hope I'm okay, but just say a prayer for her. Don't worry about me. I mean, you can if you want, but I need to put these up higher. I just want to be around to take care of my wife and these cats and this dog, man. It's all I've got. I've got a few friends, you guys out there, but don't have a lot of friends. I'll call and talk forever to friends, and it's like, I feel like, man, I'm talking forever, and they're probably like, will this guy ever shut up? And so I do the show to try to feel like I've got friends, man. But reality.
Oh yes, the summer of '76, 50 years ago.
Here's this book that came out, Tales Too Terrible to Tell, Terrorology. That reprinted in black and white these pre-code horror stories. They didn't reprint them very well. They do it much better now. Was this from the 80s? 93. I mean, they were trying. And then there's the little text stories in the back about this stuff. But there was this company, Eerie Publications, which had nothing to do with Eerie magazine put out by James Warren. They put out these lurid magazines. This is one of the more tame ones. And there's one from May 1971, Horror Tales. And what they were, okay, now we're starting to get the lurid ones. They look like what you'd see at the state fair when you go into the spook house, the kind of stuff painted on the walls. It's all very lurid and bloody, and inside were stories that looked like very much like the art of the 1950s, and in a lot of cases it was actual stories from the 1950s that they had gotten a hold of, and then they'd paint in more blood than there originally was, or they'd change the clothing a little bit to make it look more like modern 1970 or 1969. Like if the guy was wearing a hat, they might get rid of the hat, because guys didn't wear hats after the Kennedy administration. You look back at movies from the 50s and the 40s, every guy on the street wears a hat. Kennedy didn't wear a hat, and that affected style. I mean, it's hard to believe. Nobody dresses a certain way because Barack Obama or Jimmy Carter or Nixon or no president has affected fashion like that. When a day before Kennedy was killed, he was in Fort Worth, and they tried to give him a cowboy hat, and he said no. They tried to get him to put it on because they thought this will be a real photo opportunity, because he never wears a hat. And he said, I'll put it on when I get back to Washington, and thanked him. But he never got back to Washington, at least not alive. So, because he was off to Dallas right after that. Why am I talking about that? Why am I talking about hats? Oh, because they would change the artwork a little bit, and sometimes they'd draw new art, but usually it was just recycled artwork from the old archives or wherever they'd stolen it from. The covers were newly done, lurid painted covers, and they were trying to compete with James Warren, what he was trying to do, which was bring back the feeling of the EC comics with creepy, eerie Vampirella. But they push it much farther with these covers with the blood and the severed heads, people being pulled apart, and they never. These were not sold in most stores. I'm trying to think if I ever actually saw, in elementary school, a kid bought one somewhere in San Antonio, but I don't know what store. But I never saw these on sale. I never did. I don't think I ever saw one on sale ever, actually. Maybe some in the later 70s, I saw some put out by this company. Here's Horror Tales. This is June of 73. This one's not bagged and boarded, so we can look inside it. I like the ads for guns. Frankenstein, Switchblade, more guns, karate, and a projector, not to show girl films. It's this is what, and a skinhead wig. This would be a great thing just to make a photocopy of and put behind glass and frame it next to the commode so people can read it. It's like when Trump had that Ultimate Fighting Championship celebration in the middle of June, which had been Pride Month, and then they bring in all this ultimate macho violence stuff, complete opposite of the year, when last Biden year on June, it was all a bunch of people taking their clothes off on the lawn. This is like the ultimate page of testosterone, guns, Frankenstein, girly films, skinheads, karate. Oh, and don't forget the X-ray specs. You can see through people's clothing. But then this magazine, these magazines are crazy, man. And it used to be I would go to a convention and there would not be many people interested in these. I remember being at a convention with a stack of these. And it was just me and this other guy in a Ramones t-shirt. He was not one of the Ramones because I know what they look like, because I'm a big fan. But the people like the Ramones would be the people interested in this magazine. The ads are great. Sea monkeys, Venus flytrap. But here's a mummy story, right? But most mummy movies, you don't see them cutting off people's hands and then cutting someone's head completely cleaved down the center. That's probably stuff that happens like it might happen in movies like The Terrifier. I've never seen those movies. I no interest, but The Hungry Vampire. That mummy story was great. But anyway, these about 15, 20 years ago people started to become interested in these. And but they were put out, there was a company, it was, ooh, that's very interesting. Myron Foss was the publisher. But what I'm seeing is interesting here. It says Carl Burgos is the editor. Carl Burgos was the creator of the Human Torch, the original 1960s Human Torch. Irving Foss is the art director. He's either the son or the brother of Myron Foss, who's the publisher. Ezra Jackson is the art editor. They were probably the entire staff of the magazine. Wow. Carl Burgos. From creating the Human Torch, that would have been 30 years before. This is June of 73. Little more than 30 years before he was working for Marvel, which was called Timely at the time. Did I already show you this one? I think so. I sometimes start to tell because okay, here this was they put this out, Tales from the Crypt, and I think they got a cease and desist letter pretty quick from William Gaines, who owned the title Tales from the Crypt. This is from July of '68. 4 years later, Tales from the Crypt would be turned into a major motion picture from Amicus Studios in England, adapting stories from the William Gaines comic book from EC. So they didn't have the rights to use that name. And anyway, definitely 50s artwork. But wonderful. So look at this one. It's the greatest stuff in the world. So anyway, they changed the title with the next issue from Tales from the Crypt to, I think, Tales from the Tomb, if I'm not mistaken. Carl Burgos is the editor on this one, too. Look at this, man. What a great time period. And as you see, it's now called Tales from the Tomb. They didn't want to get into trouble. I guess they already were. But there was only the sleaziest of places that would carry these magazines. They were not carried in the armed services PXs. And see, they're still using EC terminology like picto-fiction. That was something that they were calling it at EC. This is volume 2, number 2. This is April 1970. This guy's getting his head cut off. The head is is, and then the eye is popping out. I don't know exactly why. Maybe the pressure. That's the first story in the first panel, splash page. I mean, and then the second panel, and what in the name of heck? And then a vampire-looking woman. It's just like, so that's what we're dealing with here. Here's a skeleton fighting with a snake. They also put out this Western magazine, Great West. And in the old days on that Four Color Fossil show, I remember Meyer Greenblatt showed a copy of Great West, and it had gore just like these books on the cover. And I said, I've got to go find that on eBay. And I did, and it was amazing. Look at this! Look at this ghost, the sad ghost holding. That's really, actually, kind of poignant there. Here's a Frankenstein cover. They always have the art on the back cover. The story would finish back there. This is September 1973, Volume 5, Number 5. I always hated volumes. Just give me the number. Volume 5, it's the 5th year, but then it's hard to... But if you go look on mycomicshop.com, they'll give you the actual issue number. King Kong poster, the Raquel Welch pillow. That would have been a good thing to have. Wonder how good the reproduction was on that. I've never seen the Raquel Welch pillow for sale anywhere. It's another copy of Tales from the Tomb. But they had a lot of titles. They also had Tales of Voodoo. Another copy of Tales of Voodoo. The Ghoul. Oh, they even have a text story. That's unusual. I'm sure there's not a single person that ever read Tales of Voodoo that ever read that text story. Yes, indeed. Tales of Voodoo. That one looks like it's stolen from a Marvel Dracula Lives or Vampire Tales. There was one where Dracula's kind of in that same pose looking at a sleeping girl. I'm almost positive that that's a ripoff of a Marvel magazine cover. This pretty spectacular cover. This is one of the classics. You don't get much better than that. Terror Tales. And here Barnabas Collins winds up in there.
How true that is, especially if the bread you use is Mrs. Bear's. It's the freshest tasting bread, the freshest tasting toast, and a sure way to make breakfast at your house even more enjoyable.
Look at that.
So tomorrow, start your day with Mrs. Bear's toast. You'll discover that Mrs. Bear's bread really does.
I've got to get some more magazine bags and boards. Kevin, do you have any magazine bags and boards? If you do, I may need to get some from my next order with you to get all these bagged and boarded. This is ridiculous. When I bought these, they weren't bagged and boarded. And the people that sell these are kind of turn their nose up at them. Unless they're really cool people, they understand what they are. This is actually a facsimile that I got from Kevin. Someone made a fake one. Okay, so this is... Hold on. Okay. Oh, this is a great cover. It's a hippie monster. And they're these hippies down with violence, love, not hate. It almost looks like what I see all the time on the what happens at these protests today. April 1968. There was also weird. They had a bunch of titles. Oh, hold on. This is the one I was talking about, the Western one. From December of 68. Great West. It even has a cool date stamp there. September 17th, 1968. Okay. You've seen a million of these Western magazines. Then you pull it up, and it's blood. It's a showgirl. One of the girls at the saloon has been shot. It's she got accidentally shot in a gunfight. It's the same company. Let me go backwards. They had Witches' Tales. They had a bunch of different titles. They were putting out more different titles than Warren was. Yeah, it looks just like that, a lot like that artwork you'd see on the side of the haunted house spook show, little dark rides at the carnivals. A lot of those are German-made. This one I've seen used elsewhere. This painting is not an original painting. It's from some science fiction little digest, and it doesn't have any gore on it. Towards the end, they were, instead of all the blood, they started making it where the monsters were robots, and when they got ripped apart, you saw gears and screws and stuff fall, and machinery falling out, so it wasn't as offensive, I guess, to people. But back at this time period, there'd be real blood next to these magazines, because the wrestling magazines of this time period had even more blood on real photographs of guys bleeding and in the ring. Just a different time period. Then there was a whole genre of magazines for a little while when streaking became popular that were about streaking, and they kept those behind the counter, but there were just photographs of people running around streaking. Was that about 1974 that streaking became popular? Now the ones that I would see on the stand were these ones. This is not the same company. This is Skywald. So you put that there. That's the same spot where it says a Warren publication on the Warren magazines. These are made to look like the Warren magazines. Much nicer paintings. That's Boris Vallejo painting from 1971. Psycho. These magazines would show up in the PX. I'd see them. Psycho and Nightmare and yeah. So there are tons of these horror magazines out when I was a kid. Psycho was, it looked like this. Very much like the Warren magazines, but... let me flip through here. I don't know if I have time to show them all. The one that I most remember seeing on the newsstand was this cover. This is the cover I remember. This is one of those images burned into my brain. September 73, I remember seeing that. Psycho, and the other one was called Scream. I remember seeing this cover too. These weren't August 73, same time period, right in the beginning of third grade, burned in my brain. And then there was this magazine, Nightmare. So Warren had a lot of competition, but they were the ones doing it best. And then when Atlas Seaboard came along for a few months, the company that was created by Martin Goodman to try to run Marvel out of business, they had Weird Tales of Macabre, and people tried to talk them out of using this cover, but they insisted on using it. And then I think there were only 2 issues of this, and then they had a Vampirella imitation called Devilina, but I think I have that in my box with the Vampirellas. There's also this magazine, remember this, Cartoons? This was kind of like a Mad magazine, but it was for car people. That's an October 71 issue. I went into a Walmart a couple of years ago, and I thought I was hallucinating. I saw an issue of Cartoons on the stand, and someone after decades and decades had brought it back, and it looked just like it used to. And I don't think it's still being put out. But they also had a magazine called Cycle Tunes, and this is interesting. This is put out by the same company that put out Cracked. You can tell because look at this John Severin Insanity with a giant fight scene. You got the Beatles in there, and you can tell the time period from that. And the fact that it's called POW magazine, you would think it's about 1966, and that's because of the Batman show. Yes, 1966. So the whole premise of the magazine is giant sound effects, because they figure that's what made the Batman show popular. We'll just make a magazine called POW. We'll play the whole magazine based on violence and violent sound effects. I wonder if there are other issues of this. It's just everywhere. It's the sound effects. It's how strange. What is this? This looks like it's older. It's a parody of Have gun will travel. This artwork is unlike anything I've seen, and it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen in Cracked. Look at how they have too much space in the word balloon. It's fascinating. I forgot about this magazine. Of course, look at that. It's a paladin is a fish. And it's Reader's Digest, but it's called Psycho. And here's Monster. It's just different variations of Reader's Digest. Oh my gosh, Cotton Picker's Digest. It's almost like you could take these and cut them out and paste them over your parents' Reader's Digest magazine and make it Armed Forces. Oh, the little cat is here. My goodness. It's time for you to pet me. Everything is very violent in this magazine, but some of this is recycled from Cracked magazine. I see that. And maybe that, oh shit. Stop, Drew. Okay. Dog is jealous that the cat's in my lap. Anyway, this is a magazine you don't see that often. Maybe the last time in your life you see it. Then there's also drag cartoons. This is the time of course, when they say the biggest things in the 60s were the Beatles, Bond, and Batman, they forgot about, no, it should be the 4, not 3. It should be the Beatles, Bond, Batman, and Big Daddy Roth. That would sum up the 60s, wouldn't it? Look at Batman on the cover of Drag Cartoons. That's a great cover. Yeah, man. Drew, you didn't eat your breakfast. That's why she's grumpy. Is there something wrong with your breakfast? Okay, that's that box. What's in this box down here? Oh, the National Lampoons we were looking at. We didn't look at all of them, but... Is it time for lunch? 11. Yeah, it actually is. Hold on. Well, maybe we should get something to eat. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Where are my sunglasses now? No, that's not them. Are these my sunglasses? What are these? These are like a child's sunglasses. Now it's starting to get a little cloudy out here. Let's see what the weather's doing out here. Did I check the mail today or was that yesterday? Every day blends into the last. Into the next. I don't know what. Ooh, that looks kind of cool. The sky. Huh. Strange days. Must be an election coming up. They keep getting these little flyers to vote for a particular person. She says she's endorsed by Trump. That's the third or fourth one we've gotten. Let's see if we can see any of those little kittens that got a tribe of feral cats that roam the neighborhood. Oh my gosh, someone playing copywritten music. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible music. I haven't heard anyone play their music that loud since I was in Texas, and that's very discouraging. So that's why I don't like 2026, is the music like that is apparently popular. What I like is seeing a guy driving a lawnmower down the street. I never saw that in Texas. People drive golf carts and lawnmowers around. It's kind of like, remember the TV show The Prisoner? They always drove around those little vehicles. People have vehicles like that here. They drive around. I think they call them gators. Could be mistaken. Stuff you don't see in Texas. You see in little towns. Well, you were here with me for breakfast, and now you're going to be here with me for lunch. That sky looks cool. That's a really cool looking sky, man. Look at that. All right, so lunch has been acquired. Taking a different route home. We've returned, and remember that song Ventura Highway from the early 70s where they sang about alligator lizards in the sky? I thought, well, I should create a song about alligator lizards in the sky and how dangerous they are. I bought more dog food because she's not eating that dog food. Maybe there's some reason. Yeah, what are alligator lizards in the air anyway, ladies and gentlemen? The world may never know. Anyway, I gotta go.